involved with PMI since 1997, earning the PMP, the PGMP, and the TFMP certifications. He is currently working on his first book. His experience spans service delivery and sales. Nicholas is a regular speaker across the country. His talks take the from the field approach and blend education, humor, and storytelling with a bit of exaggeration.
Exaggeration.
I can't even talk today. He's originally from New York, living in the Dallas area, and friends call him the New York Cowboy.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. When I was growing up, when I was in grammar school, there was a classmate of mine. His name was John Kinker. While the rest of the class was drawing stick figures, John was drawing portraits, real-life portraits. And so was his sister, Susie, and Sarah. It wasn't for a couple years that I and the rest of the class realized, yes, he was born with some heightened skill set, some heightened abilities, but he also had to feed his passion, his abilities. It was until a couple years later that we found out that he also went to classes, to art classes. He had personal training. He had a family that appreciated art. Yes, he was born with some abilities, but he developed those over time. When I first started in project management, I could remember thinking the senior project managers in my department, my team, that they just looked like everything came naturally to them. It wasn't until years later, just like John, that I realized they weren't born great project managers. It's something that you have to develop. And I believe that there's an art and a science to project management. The science part, you could read a book, you could study the formulas, the PERT formula, or how you do risk analysis, how you look at probabilities and impacts, how you calculate the critical path on your projects. And the art, well, that's a little different. I think you can attend classes, talk to peers, but growing in the art is a little different. It's a lot of on-the-job experience. It's a lot of learning from yourself, and learning from others as well. No one's born a great artist. No one's born a great project manager. I want you to think back to the most difficult interview question you've ever had. Perhaps that question would determine whether you got the job or not. Perhaps that question would even determine your next career path. I had my moment 20 or so years ago. Out of college, took a job doing LAN and desktop support. Did a little process work. Soon found myself with IBM and their process team. I quickly found out that I didn't really care for the work. However, I thought that what the project manager were doing looked really interesting. So I read as much as I could, attended as many conferences and seminars like you're doing today, and I made my desires known. Later found myself in an interview with the director of project management. Her name is Chris, and she asked me a question. She said, "Nick, you're running a project and it's behind schedule. You know how to do the work because you came from that background. What do you do?" And she baited me on. She said, "Nick, do you roll up your sleeves, get your hands dirty? Do you help? What do you do?" And I had to think about that. I didn't think the question were so straightforward. There had to be something there. I said, yes, I would help. However, I will not roll up my sleeves and get my hands dirty. Maybe I'll look for more resources, different resources. Maybe I'll get with the team, think about some items that we could do in parallel versus serial, gain some time back. I would hope to use the tools and the process of project management to predict the problem and even make sure it didn't occur in the first place. What do you think she was getting at? Anyone tell me why that question mattered? What do you think? Are you a leader or a doer? Why? Because there's a different skill set to being an individual contributor, doing that well, and being a manager or a project leader. A lot of technical people aren't able to make that jump. They don't understand there's a difference between knowing how to do the work, rolling up your sleeves, because that doesn't scale, right? Might get you out of that small project one time. But the skill set that we have to develop is leadership. We have to transition to leaders. You should be able to manage any type of project. Leave the technology to your architects, to your resources. You must transition to leadership. I want you to think about the last project that you finished. Might have had a lot of teams involved, a lot of artifacts, project schedules, meeting minutes, status reports, schedules, communication plans, risk registers, issues registered. At the end of that project, was anyone in this room able to take any one of those artifacts and sell them on eBay? No. I've never once had anyone raise their hand and say, yeah, I do it all the time. Had someone say that maybe eBay is not the right place for it, I said, fine. Where then did you sell the artifacts? Of course, no. Last conference I was at, someone told me, they said, in my organization, we've done away with project managers. Now, I don't recommend that. I'm not endorsing that as an action. And I think it would be interesting to see where they are 6 months from now. But you can manage a project without us, can't you? So if we produce nothing material of value, and we too could run a project without us, why do we have jobs? Can anyone tell me why we have jobs? To make projects run better.
Make the doers more efficient.
Make the
doers to do more than they could on their own.
Correct. PMI will talk about the triple constraints, hitting scope, cost, quality, or the quad constraints. You have it scope there. But it's two reasons. One, you're a leverage. Project managers are leverage, right? We enable other resources to keep busy, to keep productive. If you're running a professional services organization, you keep other people utilized. You also raise the statistical probability of success. That's why we're here. That's why we have jobs. So what is success? How do you define project success? It's got to be more than just the triple constraints.
It's usually a good idea to ask the customer before the project really gets underway, what will the end look like for you that will satisfy your needs in this project?
What are the expectations of the customer? Did the customer get what they expected, when they expected? Project management, I tell people, is about managing the gaps, the delta. You have an expectation, and then you have a forecast or an actual. If the customer's expectations aren't in line with what you are delivering, it's your job to bring their expectations in line, or to change what you're delivering, right? Manage that delta, that gap. It's also important to look at not just what the customer expects, but what does your delivery organization expect? They expect to be profitable. And profit isn't a dirty word, right? We're here to deliver, to bring on success for the customer, but we're also here to get paid. And if you do work internally, what is being profitable? It's hitting the budget, hitting the money that you were assigned for that project. Success is more than just the triple constraints. It's also is the benefit of your project being utilized. Is there value in your project? If you complete a project and the product of your project is never utilized, is it a success or not? Does the delivery organization and the customer want to do business together again? I spent 17 years in project delivery, and now I'm in services sales. It wasn't until I moved over to services sales that I really understand the gravity of that statement. When I'm out there selling to a new customer or a new department, it's a total different type of sale. I'm talking about how great the team is, how we could hit what they are looking for, giving them those reassurances. But after you guys deliver the second, third, fourth project, they're not looking at me. They want me to step aside. They can look at the delivery team. That's the proof. Do they want to do business with you again? Are they looking forward to that next project? So when you're there delivering on your project, you're actually salespeople for the projects down the line. You might not even know about it. Do you want to do business again? What I see out there are a lot of what I call status reporters. Today I'm red, maybe I'm yellow. Last week I might have been green. They tend to report on the now or the yesterday. And then they tend to walk away as well. I'm red. They work in the area of issues and problems. What we want more are the psychics. I call it the Psychic Plus. They're using the tools of project management to predict the future, 2 to 3, 4 months down the line. And the plus part comes into play because after they look and see the problems, they put together alternatives, plans. They might go to management or their sponsor with, these are the issues and these are the 3 ways you could solve that problem. These are the pros and cons. This is the one that I recommend. And why? They're solving problems before they've ever occurred. And when you do that and do that well, you look like the swan. The swan swims across the lake, looks very graceful, stress-free, almost looks like they're not putting a whole lot of effort into their movement. Now, underneath the surface, that swan, the project manager, they may be paddling like crazy, but they're doing it in a productive, proactive manner. And that's where you want to be. The irony is, when you're doing your job and doing it well, people are wondering why they need you, what value we bring. Consider that a compliment if people wonder what's taking all your time. I want you to think back to the last successful project you had. You're doing maybe lessons learned. Did you sit around and wonder, what did we do to get here? It was a lot of hard work, right? Success isn't by accident. It doesn't just happen. You have to plan for it. My godfather has a nice big farm up in Ohio, and at the end of his property, there's a creek. And he wanted to put a little yurt up so we could go down there and grill, barbecue, and have a place to sleep. So he orders online this yurt, the some assembly required yurt, turnkey yurt. And that yurt arrives on 2 flatbed trucks with a 3-inch manual on how to put it together with 243 steps. Turnkey. I hate the word turnkey. To me, it brings this vision of here's the keys, go do your work, and tell me when you're done. You're going to get that on your projects unless you inform the customer of the changing of the hats. After they sign the contract, after your sponsor signs the charter, what are they in addition to a customer? Stakeholder, well, they were before, but what are they now? Part of the solution. Part of the team. That's a concept that project managers get. It's not widely known. It's turnkey. Here's the keys. Tell me when you're done. It's our jobs to inform the customer that they're now not just the customer, they're part of the team. I do it with what I call the 14-day outlook. It's a to-do list. I literally hand the customer a report that says everything in the next 14 days, this is what you and your team should be working on and completing. Now, I provide one for my team as well, but I provide that to the customer. If you don't, it's make it happen. It's turnkey. Tell me when you're done. It's our jobs to educate the customer of that changing of the hat. I had a customer that had this project that I took over about halfway through. And the customer in a meeting said, I need you to pull in the last date, the milestone, by 2 weeks. And he started to walk for the door. I said, where are you going? He says, make it happen, 2 weeks, pull it in. Let me know when you figured it out. I said, whoa, time out here. You need to get your project manager, your project architect, I'll get mine, and we'll sit down with the schedule and we'll figure out together how we could pull in your dates. It's a new concept. But I promise you, if you can have that discussion with your customer, which you can have, if you educate them up front, things will go much better. They're not in the project management world like we are. It's taken for granted. Here you go, make it happen. It's your jobs to educate them. What do you think happens if the customer is late with a task and it impacts their own deliverable, but you didn't let them know what their to-do list was? Who's at fault? Who gets blamed? Anyone tell me that? Which project manager? You. So it's, and I'm not saying that life is fair or this is fair, but if your customer doesn't do something that impacts their own date and you didn't let them know, it is your fault. You let them think turnkey. So I say turnkey no more. Let's get rid of that word. So I'm married and I have 3 children. And between me and my wife and my kids, we're all born in different cities. My wife is from Brazil. She's from a little town in the Amazon. I'm from New York, as you know. My oldest son, Sean, is 10. He was born in Danbury, Connecticut. My middle son, he was born in Miami, Florida. And my daughter in Jacksonville, Florida, Adriana. It became sort of a little running joke of where you were born determining whether you're cold or hot-blooded, and where we would visit, who would get cold and who would be hot, okay? Some of you may joke like that as well. So we did. And then one winter, we were planning a trip to Ohio to visit my godfather and family. So it would be cold, be snow there. And I'm driving one day to the supermarket. I've got my 2 boys in the back, and they're maybe 6 and 4 at the time. And I hear, Sean, you don't understand. I'm gonna get cold in Ohio because I was born in Dad's Ammy. I said, I can't make this up. He was born in Dad's Ammy, so he's gonna get cold. I stop the car, pull over. Okay, what? He says, Dad, I'm gonna get cold because I was born in your Ammy. I said, wow, okay. The point is, if my kids can misunderstand a simple word like Miami for the literal Miami or Dad's Ammy or your Ammy, just about anything could be confused. And I think we see this in project management as well. We tend to hear what we intended to relay. We need to look at not what we intended, but how other people are hearing what we're saying. And as teams get bigger, more global, they cross cultural boundaries, handoffs are on the rise, this becomes more and more of an issue. Whenever I start a project, whenever I look at a troubled project, one of the key areas is always interfaces and handoffs. Whenever one person needs the output from another person as their input, those are your trouble spots. And it's as simple as one person, the other person, or it could be as complex as organization to organization. Pay attention to the handoffs and the interfaces. What you assume as crystal clear may not be. Don't have a Miami moment. Last summer, we traveled to my wife's village, the Amazon. And I like to try new foods. I like cashews. So my wife hands me a cashew fruit. That's what you see up there. Those are 3 cashew fruits. She says, try this. So I bit into the cashew fruit, started eating it. It was delicious, loved it. Best fruit I've ever tried, comparable to no other. And I said, I like cashew nuts, right? So then I said, wow, I get to try a cashew. So I bit into the cashew up at the top. Well, when I bit into that cashew, out came a creamy, white, highly toxic fluid. My lips got all burned, all numb, throat got numb, tongue numbed up. She said, eat this, but she didn't say, not that. Ambiguity is deadly. I eventually got better, but the point is, when you're defining your scope, it's just as important to say what's in scope as what's not. When you're defining your organization's strategy, it's just as important to understand what is your strategy versus what is not. When you're communicating, just the same. What are you looking to receive? What are we not? Ambiguity is deadly. Have you ever run a project and you didn't quite get a yes? The absence of no is not yes, or the absence of yes is not agreement. It's looking at the cues. You may hear yes, or you may just hear silence. Dig in, because that's your trouble areas. It's that soft confirmation. It's, this is what I think I'm going to get from you. Just repeat it back to a person. Is that what you're thinking of handing off to me? And if it's not, you'll discover it then versus later. SpongeBob and Patrick were going for a walk in Bikini Bottoms. And I told you I have kids, so I know the name of the city. It's Bikini Bottoms. That's where SpongeBob lives. They're going for a walk. And off in the distance, they spot a bear. And that bear comes running at them. And SpongeBob walks up to a log. He puts his leg up, and he starts to tie his shoelaces really tight. Patrick looks down at him. He says, "What are you doing, SpongeBob? Are you serious? Do you really think tying your shoelace tight that you'll be able to outrun that bear?" SpongeBob looks back at Patrick and he says, "Oh, my friend, my buddy, I don't need to outrun the bear. I need to outrun you." When you're managing your projects, you need to understand the WIFM, the what's in it for me. The what's in it for me at the individual level, the team level, the project manager level, and the organization and the customer. Those are not always in alignment. What will happen at the first sign of trouble if the WIFMs aren't in alignment? At the first sign of trouble, your people, your team, they'll turn into SpongeBob. They'll look out for themselves. You won't have a team. You'll have a group of SpongeBobs. Project issues arise. I'm going to look out for myself. It's as simple as understanding the what's in it for me. How does someone benefit by being on your project? If your project goes over budget, does that impact the people on your team? No. So what's in it for me is different for you as your team. And how does that impact your project? The first point is just acknowledging that those WIFMs are different, and then understanding how that will affect your project. If the WIFM for the customer is when your project fails, they lose their job. And I've been on the other side purchasing services that I now deliver. And I can tell you that your customers, it's not just the budget. It's not just, are you going to cost me more money? What if their WIFM was, I lose my job? do you think they would act in ways that's different from the way you would as the project manager? When that project doesn't go well, do you get to keep your job? Sometimes, sometimes not. It's the WIFM. They have to be in alignment, and you have to understand the impact if they're not. I'm going to say something that is going to make you wonder if I ever were a project manager. And it's, I love change requests. And I'll say it, now I'm in services sales. I love change requests because it means more money. But I'll say I even had that feeling when I was a project manager. It gave me the opportunity to grow the business, to expand the work. Now, I'm not talking about ripping off your customers or milking them, but if they paid for a 10-site implementation and then they asked for 2 more sites, that's a change request. I've always told project managers that anyone can sell work for free. It doesn't take a genius to position extra work for free, right? The hard part is selling those 2 extra sites because, you know it, when you've got 10 sites and there's 2 more that they want, what do you think their opinion is of those 2 extra sites? Is it in or out of scope? It's in. I want them anyway. You should be doing that. You should have known. So doing the work and getting paid, it's tricky. It's hard. It takes finesse. It takes the art of project management. Anyone can deliver the work for free. So I like change requests. And I think there's different layers of change requests that all have different challenges. There's that work that is just extra, the value add. I think that's pretty easy to sell. You bought 10, you need 2 more, no big deal. But what about if the customer causes delay, causes your costs to go up with no extra value added? How do you handle that? There you are. You need to deliver to your customer, maybe to your sponsor, a request for more money. There's no more value add. So the same customer now looks bad. They maybe now have to explain to their management, we need more money. Well, what else are you getting? Nothing. Why are you getting nothing? Our team didn't do their job. It takes the art, it takes the finesse to have that discussion and still keep the relationship intact. Make it a fun journey. How many of your projects finish along the same path as what was believed in the beginning? Change is inevitable. Change should be embraced. When you're working with your projects, your customers, give them a nice journey. As they change, are you flexible? Don't push back change. It's what your customer's asking for. Work through the change process. I enjoyed project management. I enjoyed each project was like having a new job. I didn't particularly care for the technology that I was managing. I just liked to get things done. What I found really rewarding is when I managed a project and I could see its impact. I managed a project that implemented what's called speed tiers. In the old days, if you use your cell phone, everyone were treated the same. No matter how much bandwidth or cost you brought about, we got the same amount of money from everyone. Then speed tiers came along, and it's a way that the telecoms can look and see who's costing us more money, and they could change their price levels. So a project I was working on had an impact. It supported a marketing program. I enabled something. It's that and other programs that I found interesting. That's my passion. You have to find your passion with project management. Why do you enjoy it? And look and seek out projects like that. If you don't, it's just a job. So I ask you, is project management a job or career for you? Find your passion. I had a project when I worked for an OEM, which is an original equipment manufacturer. The customer, they purchased a bunch of equipment, and then they came to us and said, we're going to buy the services from you. There's some bundled deal. They said, you will use this partner that we prefer. But here's the kicker. They said, we don't want to talk to you. We don't like your services. We don't even want to speak to you. So imagine, there you are. You're the project manager. You've got a subcontractor, and they don't want to speak to you. 2 weeks I managed a project like that, where the project meetings were run by my partner, my subcontractor, and I couldn't say a peep. I had to check my ego at the door. It wasn't until late Friday, it was about 10:30 at night. This was before emails just went to your cell phones. I don't even know if I had a cell phone back then. It was 17 years ago. The customer sent out an email saying, help, I got this problem, this issue that I can't figure out. So I email them back. Just happened to be checking my emails. That time I used one computer for my business and my personal accounts, email accounts. And they said, Victor, it's not a problem we can't solve. What he particularly wanted was billing to come in this fiscal year versus the next. I said, Victor, I got a solution for you. However, I do need you to speak with me. If you give me a call, we'll knock it out. It's not a problem. 5 minutes later, I got a call from Victor. I was immediately his best buddy, solving his problem. Sure, it was hard to swallow dry, but those are what I call moments of truth. You could manage a project for 6 months, 12 months, be doing really well, and then the customer needs you, and you're not there. And almost immediately, their view of you changes. Those are the moments of truth that we all need to be prepared for. After that moment of truth, I was able to talk with him. I was able to do my job. I was able to manage my project as the project manager, just from answering an email on a Friday night. How many of you have ever had issues with maybe your home insurance, car insurance, or maybe your home internet service or cable service, and you've called the support desk, and they didn't introduce themselves even with their first name? So you're on the phone with maybe AT&T customer support. How can I help you? Do you think that de-escalates your frustration level? Who's on the other end of the line? AT&T. A company, a big company. There's no face to that company, is there? What I say is become a person. Become Jake the State Farm agent. Become Flo. from Progressive. Become a person. It sounds kind of sarcastic, but get to know your customers. Get to know your team. I'm Nick. I've got 3 kids. My son is in baseball, just like the customer's 9-year-old. I like to mountain bike. So does a guy on my team. Spend that time, because when there are issues, and I promise you, your projects will all have issues, it buys you a little leeway. It buys you enough time to say, okay, let me address that issue. If all you are is, let's say you work at Siemens, or I worked at Cisco and Computer Associates, if all I am is that Cisco project manager, easy to be annoyed at me. It's easy to escalate me. But guess what? If it's Nick, who's got 3 kids, who was born in New York and so was I, do you think they're going to escalate me as quickly as they would before? No. And I'm not saying get to know your customers and all your problems will go away, but get to know them as people and become a person. If you do that, you'll get the extra leeway. Started off the discussion talking about how John had this natural ability and I had none. What I found out is it just mattered how I defined art. And of course, I took some classes, but I eventually did find my artistic side. This is a piece that I had done years ago. And back then, I won't say that it symbolized anything in project management because it didn't. It had more to do with me and my wife coming together and our love together. That's what it's about. But it's also, if I look at it now, it's a coming together of the yin and the yang, the art and the science of project management. And it symbolizes that we can all embrace the art side of project management. No one's gifted from the beginning, and we all have to learn and grow from each other and ourselves. I tend to work from the customer site, headquarters, and at home. I have a home office. And I'm working from home one day, and I hear this rattle. It goes da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. I'm like, my God, what is that noise? So I get out of my office, walk outside the house. I go and take a look at the roof. Right near my office is a bathroom with a vent pipe sticking out of the roof. And I see this cute squirrel gnawing at the vent pipe. Maybe not this one in particular, but a squirrel just chewing on the pipe. Did some research and I find squirrels like the taste of lead. It's got a sweet taste that they enjoy. So they gnaw at these pipes, gnaw enough that the pipe goes down, gets worn, and you eventually get a leak in your roof. Not only does it damage your pipes, but over time, the squirrel's teeth start to get rounded out. And if you have round teeth and you're a squirrel, you can't eat. So they slowly starve to death. When I started project management 20 years ago, the saying was that 80% of projects fail. Here we are, 20 years later. What percentage of projects fail? 80%. We as an industry need to change. We need to do something different. What we've been doing in the last 20 years is not moving that needle. If we don't do something different, how are we any different from the squirrel? We have to change. And I say, embrace the PM Easel, embrace your PM Easel, and let's change the industry. Thank you. questions, comments, feedback? I think it's the, oh, sure.
You open your session, talk about a transition to leadership. Is it really a transition? Can everybody be leaders? Can you ever go back?
So the question has to do with the transition to leadership. Can everyone be leaders and can you go back? I think the answer is yes, and it depends altogether. So first, I think it's recognizing that there is a change required. I've seen this term, I'm a technical project manager. Some of you may have heard that. You're a technical project manager. If that means your projects are technical, I love the term. If it means that I manage projects but I do the work as well, it's a conflict of terms. What got you to be great as an individual contributor is not the same skill set for a project leader. It's not rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. It's how do you inspire others who maybe don't work for you to want to make your project a success. So I do think that there is a transition that you have to make, and that is the exact thing that she was trying to get to, was did you recognize that you should be making that transition? Now, the next question is, can you make the transition? Or did you? And I don't think we all have made that transition. Now, I don't know about people in the room, right? But there are project managers I have worked with that have not made that transition. They're stuck in the hows. They want to know every single detail of their project plans, every single detail, as if the design were not done correctly, they would do it themselves. That's a team lead. They could never manage anything outside of what they themselves understand. So I do think that there is a transition needed. I don't think we've all been able to make that transition. And maybe those are the people that maybe it's just not the right field for them. Or maybe they need to recognize, go back to the drawing board, and understand the transition that they should make. Now, can you go back? I imagine you could. I think it probably takes a certain kind of person to go back. I don't know if I could go back even to project management, or if I were a project manager still to going back to being an individual contributor. I think it's just your personality type. But I don't see anything wrong with it. You may go and become a project manager and then decide, you know what? I don't enjoy being responsible for work that I myself am not doing. That's pretty valid. So you may not even enjoy the work.
I know somebody did that.
They did, they went back.
Well, they weren't a project manager, but they're a team lead, which they had direct reports.
Yep.
But they're highly technical. They're one of those, you know, they knew everything, been there forever. And they decided they didn't want the HR responsibilities.
Oh.
So they moved back to a very high-level technical person, but no direct reports.
Yeah, I don't think anything is wrong with that.
They're more in that camp of I can do it better than anybody else. So I'm better individual contributor. I mean, I think they personally just made the decision. No one can do it as well as I can. You know, they had a bit of an ego, right? So they went back to where they thought they could add the most value.
Well, I think there's also maybe you enjoyed doing the work versus leading the work. I've seen a lot in the industry of what I call the accidental project managers. Maybe you've seen this. You take a great engineer, they're doing an awesome job, and what does management do? They make them either a team lead or they make them the project manager. Why? Is the skill set that made them a great engineer the same skill set that's going to make them a great leader? Now, don't get me wrong, maybe they have both skill sets, but is the assumption that since you know how to technically do the work, that you could lead this huge project of other people like yourself just because you know how to do the work. I think this is a debate that I've seen from company to company to company. Some tend to favor more on the technical side of the house. I tell people I grew up with IBM and their view of the process, where we moved from project to project to project, technology to technology, and we learned the process. But that's not the norm everywhere. Any other questions? Did I answer your question? No, I didn't. No.
You gave a good start. It's just that many times in the world of project management, we see someone that believes they have transitioned to a leadership role, when in effect they still have not really become the true leader. And it's in those same organizations, I want to bring up a second question. You've talked about project management as a lever.
Yep.
What about when project management is used as a hammer?
So, and I'll need some clarification there. A lever or leverage, what I was referring to is that your project manager can keep 10 to 20 people busy, productive, efficient, utilized even, okay? So their value isn't them being individual contributors. It's I can keep 10 people, 20 people marching towards one goal where we need the 20 people to succeed. That's where the leverage comes in. I have also seen project managers as using a hammer, and I think it's just a different management style. I wouldn't particularly say it's the most effective. What I like to do is what I talked about before with the WIFM. What's in it for me? If I'm managing a project and you're on my project, then maybe I'm having a difficult time, let's say, with you or a resource. I try to get in their mind to see what is it that would interest them to work on my project and make it a success. You don't always have the leverage of using the hammer. So it's just different styles, I think.
Yeah, I didn't know if maybe corporate culture might come into play.
It definitely does. In some organizations, the project managers have some real bite. In some other organizations, they don't. If you're in a matrix organization or projectized organization or functional organization, I think you have different levels of authority, positional authority. And that's really where the hammer comes in. Other thoughts? Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed it.